What's up? This is Sean Dustin, the host of the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Today is April 3rd. This is your first time listening. Welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Glad to have you with us today. This is episode 27. Today we will be talking to Ann Peterson. Ann is a musician, an author, a coach, but she was also a cellist as a career, and she experienced a career-ending diagnosis, which caused her to have to stop doing what she enjoyed doing for a career to make money, a livelihood, and how she identified herself. And all of a sudden, one day, all that's gone. And so she shares her story on how she was able to pull through that or those times. And the only other thing I got is, if you enjoy the show, tell a friend, and spread the word, get me some listeners. I'd appreciate it. If you're on iTunes, rate, review. It's always a good way to help the show out. Aside from that, I hope everybody who's quarantining, sheltering in place, social distancing, staying at home, I hope we are all doing our part, irregardless of how we feel about the current situation that we're in with this coronavirus. Err on the side of caution and just do what they're telling you. It's for a short period of time. Use the time wisely, reflect, learn something. If you have questions, it's a good time to seek out the answers for them on the internet, but beware of misinformation and disinformation. It's pretty much our time to do it as we please, and what better way to spend it other than trying to improve yourself. So enough of me, and let's go ahead and get to the show. All right, this is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today, my guest is Ann Peterson, and she is the author of
Bare Naked Bravery.
Bare Naked Bravery. I should have had this already memorized and done, but I didn't, and so apologize for that. I'm not a professional anything. I just like to talk. Emily.
That's all of us.
Go, Ann. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what you're doing here.
Well, thank you for having me. So I'm a songwriter, I'm a musician, and I happen to also be an author. About the short version of the story, I'll give the short version, and then you can dive into which area you want to go into. The short version is that about 6 years ago, I was a full-time cellist and cello teacher. And I was living in the Seattle area. Had maybe between 20 and 30 different cello students, and was doing recording sessions and performances all over the area, and really loving it. It was a really great time. And I started noticing that my right hand would shake. And that is not a good thing for a stringed instrument player to have happen, especially in your right hand, because that's the hand that you hold the bow with. And I went to the doctor, and they diagnosed me with an essential tremor. So one essential tremor in my right hand. And it's degenerative and neurological and hereditary. And so over the course of several doctor's appointments, it became really clear that it was a career halting diagnosis, because we didn't know how bad it was going to get, and we also didn't know how fast it was going to get bad. At that time, I didn't know if I had a year left to play this instrument, or if I had another 20 years left. And that big question mark made it really not a prudent decision to continue investing my career in something that, like, basically putting all my eggs in a basket with a really big hole at the bottom. And it was tragic, terrible. There were lots of tears, and through that process of like getting myself up off the ground and doing the next thing, I had a lot of people telling me that I was being really brave. And that really, it irked me a little bit because it didn't feel brave at all. And the fact that I didn't understand what bravery really meant kind of shocked me a little bit. And then I also, just because I usually consider myself to be somebody who likes to take risks and do those kinds of things. And so I did a lot of research, read a lot of books, love me some Brene Brown, like, love me, all that good stuff. But what I found in doing a lot of that, like book reading, like head knowledge research about fear and courage and wholeheartedness is that it's a lot of theories and not a lot of like, here's what you do next, and not a lot of like recipes. And I'm the kind of person that needs that analytical, like, here are all the ingredients. So I kept having conversations with people about it. And those conversations turned into a podcast. And that podcast turned into this book called Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous. And it's mostly stories from my life and how I have applied the various 12 ingredients of bravery, and have continued to do so in the rest of my life. I mean, one of the things that I learned in my research was that bravery is a spiral, or I think of it as a spiral, and it starts off really small. So sometimes when you're doing brave things at first, you don't acknowledge that they're brave because they're so tiny. And a lot of times they don't get noticed because those feats of bravery are so small. Like just thinking a thought for the first time, right? That's really small. But when we do brave things and the spiral goes out and out and out, and we continue to practice them outwards, then the spiral gets bigger and we get to practice that bravery on a daily basis. So that's what the book's all about. And that's what I now do a lot of. I talk about bravery a lot these days. So yeah.
Yeah, I can I relate to your analogy. And I use the same one, but I don't call it a spiral. I call it like small victories, and it's more mine, not bravery, but it's more in line with building confidence. But it goes this, it can be interchanged with that, because bravery could be somebody's confidence, you know what I mean? Or somebody's confidence could, make them braver than somebody else, because they have that confidence.
Absolutely.
So I think,
well, like being a confident person, or the pursuit of being more confident, can be a very brave thing to pursue for some people. So, yeah, for sure.
And so there's small victories that go along with building that confidence. You know what I mean? So let's just say, I have a small goal. Let's just wake up today, and I use this analogy more like when I'm trying to bring myself out of a dark place or a downtime, because we all have them. I don't think that anybody's excluded from having those kind of issues or those kind of problems or challenges. I think that, people that are severely depressed, just are missing a mechanism that the rest of us have to be able to pull ourselves out of these times and, or down points in your life. And so what I would normally do is, just take small things, take small steps to the bigger picture. And as you're building your confidence, by completing these goals, you start getting confidence to want to take on bigger goals.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of the things since publishing the book, I also started the school called the School of Bravery. And one of the things that I really encourage the students in the School of Bravery to do is to practice bravery from a place of strength rather than from a place of weakness. And I am of the belief that we are all differently abled. Just because you are, quote unquote, missing something that someone else has doesn't mean that you are less than them. It means that you are equipped to accomplish your life in a different way. And it's up to you to determine what is the easiest way to do that, rather than why do I have to do it the way that everyone else is doing it. So for instance, if you're struggling with depression, and you are physiologically, chemically, like missing some like enzymes right there, because that is a thing, right? For people who deal with chronic depression, you still are very differently abled as a human to move through life and do very brave things. You're more in touch with your lower sets of emotions, and there are jobs, and there are like there's art out there that needs that kind of skill set, basically. And if you tap into things that are designed for you, or things that you designed for yourself to accomplish, then your feats of bravery naturally feel epically easier. And I think that's what I've noticed since publishing the book is that people will, or I've seen it so much, is that people hear the word brave and they think, oh, wow, I have to be brave. So I have to do this brave thing, and I have to throw myself under the bus and become a martyr to this feat of bravery. And that is not what I'm saying for any of this. And so you can do bravery and it can feel easy. And it doesn't have to feel like pulling your own teeth out, So, yeah.
So what was the lowest point of your diagnosis, I guess you would say, and you had this life pretty much laid out for you, and it seemed like you were in a place where most people were trying, or in some cases never get to. You have you have a career and a passion that you loved. So at your lowest point, what was that, and how did you get through it?
I think the start of the lowest point was a very distinct moment. I remember sitting on the butcher paper in the doctor's office, how they had pulled that butcher paper across that thing in the room. So I was sitting on that crinkly paper, and the doctor is writing me a prescription. It's like the second prescription, because the first one made me feel really woozy. Anytime you're doing prescriptions for like neurological stuff, it's really intense medication because you're dealing with your brain chemistry, right? And so the second prescription, he was writing it out for me, and I was like, so this isn't going to go away, is it? Because by that point I had done my Wikipedia Googling research on all this. And I remember him putting his pencil down, or pen down, and he took a really big deep breath, and he looked up from his script pad, and he was like, no, this is not going away. And I remember that moment as being one of the, because it hits you in waves when you go through these really dark seasons. Your psyche can't handle all of it all at once. And so what I've noticed is that when you are going through these really like these seasons of bravery that have been where you don't really have a choice but to walk through them, right? Those seasons of bravery, often your brain will work on your behalf and not let you experience the full weight of everything all at once. And in that case, it was like a brief instance of, whoa, this is so real. This is going to be a life-changing situation here. And I didn't know at the time how life-changing, that it was going to be a good life change or a bad life change. I just knew that like everything in my life was going to change. Because at that time, the exact apartment that I rented was because of, I lived next to some bandmates. I was in a band and they wanted me in the band because of the instrument that I played. So the exact apartment that I rented was because of my instrument. The people that I interacted with on a all day basis was because of this instrument. And it was so ingrained in who I was that I almost would just say like, hi, my name's Emily Ann Peterson. I play the cello. Like it was right after my name, my last name. And so there was through that season, there was a lot of like identity deconstruction, and reconstruction. But it affected the way that I paid the rent. It affected like, who I saw. It affected everything. How I spent my free time, all that. So those kinds of diagnoses are more common than we'd like to admit, like somebody who gets, a breast cancer diagnosis, or, we're here in the middle of this quarantine where like, wow, our entire like world is about to change and is changing as we speak, and a lot of us don't have a lot of control over the things we don't have control over, right? So it can feel really chaotic and scary. But I know that one of the really cool pieces of bravery, or cool ingredients of bravery, is power of choice. And even if you feel like a victim, you at your core are not a victim. Like even if it feels like because you got laid off or because you got this diagnosis, you now are a victim of the coronavirus, or you are now a victim of your economy or your boss being a jerk or whatever. And that may be true for a brief moment, but you at your core are not a victim. You're a human, and you're a creative human, and you have a lot of other adjectives that you get to attach to you. And your power of choice can lie in how you react to a given situation. And that has a lot to do with, like how you pull yourself up from the bottom, and how you can build your own resilience and practice your bravery on a daily basis. So yeah, that power of choice is really important.
So if I gather what you're saying, so we have the opportunity, and the choice in how we respond to a victimizing situation.
Yes. I'm not saying that there are not victims ever, because it has to do with boundaries and consent. If I place a boundary, and like please do not come within 6 feet of me. That's, like our like social distancing boundary right now. And you choose to, or someone else chooses to break that boundary. They have now stepped over that boundary on purpose, knowing that the boundary was there, and have now like victimized me. But even if they victimized me, I am not a victim, because I can back up and I can go, whoa, step back across that line. I can use my words. I can use my body movement. I could call the police. I could, like, there's so many ways to react to somebody crossing a line of yours. And I have to, I make that really clear, because, there are victims like of sexual assault and really traumatic moments where, like, it's just terrifying to go through those situations. Even if you think you're brave and you're going to go to war and you come back with PTSD, those moments are going to be the ones that require the most power of choice from you, to stand up and testify against your abuser, or to say the word, no, I don't want you to do that, or to just simply back up and away or cut off that relationship, so it doesn't have to be the power of choice, or the actions that you take as a result of your power of choice don't have to be these big, grand, huge gestures, like, I don't know, filling out an arrest warrant or something like that. It can also simply just be blocking the person on social media and never talking about it, or saying one word, which is no, and that's a full sentence.
Yeah, I think victimization comes in a lot of different forms, and it can be dealt with in a lot of different ways. And being a victim is actually, some victimizing situations are not by choice, but how you react to those situations is definitely by choice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, so we can kind of contextualize it in a way that, okay, so let's just say somebody who was raped did not ask for that, irregardless of, how scantily dressed they could have been, or any of the other excuses that get thrown out there about that. Nobody has the right to put their hands on anybody else unwarranted, period. And so, but yet that happened to you. How are you going to now respond? Okay. Mm-hmm. You can use this as this experience as a way to want to hide and run away, and choose to not live your life and be out there in the public, or taking chances, or now risks, if you want to call it that. Or you can rise above that. Yes, it happened. It was horrible. This is maybe how it could have been prevented. And looking back at, you know what I mean?
Some of those situations can't be prevented.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like, if you state a boundary and your boundary is just default, I'm going to the grocery store, and someone just has it out for you and decides to like really go to town on you, then you can't prevent that. Doesn't matter how much pepper spray you have on your keychain, So I am, we can get real dark real fast with a lot of this stuff, but I do want to make sure that it's important that a lot of people want to avoid fear, and they want to the possession of fear in their body or in their mind feels uncomfortable. And when you learn to befriend it, and learn how to utilize it to your advantage, it helps you so much. It helps you so much. And especially when you are recovering from these like horrific acts of trauma and abuse. If it is just absolutely hair raising to wake up and set foot on the floor next to your bed, and you are really scared about that, that is okay. That is absolutely fine. But you still have a power of choice in how you react and how you utilize that fear. Even if you're sitting in bed and you're just like cowering under your covers, you probably have a cell phone nearby and you can call a friend and say, I'm really scared today. I don't want to get up today. And that kind of vulnerability and honesty is a risk that utilizes your power of choice. And anytime you use your power of choice and you practice your bravery, you're going around that spiral one more time, and it's getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So, the students of the School of Bravery, I have seen it in them a lot. I feel it in myself because I practice bravery a lot still. Just because I wrote a book about it doesn't mean that I've like mastered it myself, because I still am practicing it. But I will say that it's been really such an honor, and to see the students in the School of Bravery, they are learning to feel comfortable living on the edge of that spiral, and learning to, they basically befriended that discomfort, and they understand that when they feel that kind of fear or that kind of friction or that kind of anxiety, that like it exists there for a reason, that your brain is working on your behalf. If you're feeling depressed, your brain is sending you signals that something should be different, that you want to feel differently. Or maybe that you don't want to feel differently. Maybe that you want to feel sad just forever and ever. And so those messages, like learning how to read those messages from our brain, can be really powerful when we know how to read those messages and know how to use them. And an example I use all the time is walking down an alley. So as a single female, I'm a musician, so I travel a lot, and I often do a lot of solo travel. And if I'm loading into a gig or out of a gig, sometimes that happens in an alley and it's dark. And I have a choice as a single female in the United States to do several things. I have pepper spray, I travel with that. I have a dog. I travel with my dog. I also have a lot of other, like tactics and like, how do I avoid not loading my gear in and out of a dark alley? And the reason why I have all these tactics is because I'm using my fear, right? I'm listening to dark alley, scary thing. I'm afraid of what might happen in a dark alley because I am more vulnerable in that spot. I am not fearless. And that's a good thing for my career, my family, my friends, like all of those things. Like, it's a good thing for me to be using my fear in those ways because I'm protecting myself, and I'm also communicating with the venues that I'm working with. Like I load into a gig, and usually when I load into a gig, it's like daylight out, right? But I can tell where I'm loading in that, like, when the gig is done, when the concert's up, it's going to be dark and I'm going to be in a different situation. So usually at that time, I make it known to the venue manager at the time that, like, I'm going to need some help later tonight because it's going to be dark and scary in that alley, and there are lots of ways to kind of maneuver around those situations, because I also am like putting my faith and my trust in a single person who's an event manager for this building, who I may have not ever met before, and so there's lots of contingency factors in like using your fear, but it's still really powerful to notice that I have fear. The fear is not bad. The fear is a good thing. And if I can use my fear, then I can still get the things that I want. I can still play the show. I can still have a concert and have it be wonderful and great. I can still talk to my fans. I can still get the things that I want in my life.
Yeah, that's that I use like I think we do the same things, but I call them something a little bit different. Like to me, what you're describing is just prevention measures in preventing. You have a fear of an outcome, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to try to prevent and mitigate having to go through this worst case scenario is what it sounds like to me. And so like for myself, something that like fear that would be driven kind of in the way that you're speaking is being addicted again to a substance that like took my life down 3 different times. And so like I have fears around that. I mean, they're not so much fears now, but they're things that I do or won't do in fear that if A happens and then I end up in B, then B will exponentially increase the likeliness that C and D will actually follow. And before I know it, everything that I love and enjoy will no longer or will cease to exist.
Right. It's important though to also there's a difference between making decisions from your fear or making decisions from your desire. And in the case of the alley gig situation, I'm still making decisions based on my desire to play a concert and show and to be with my audience. But I am using my fears to still accomplish my desire. Whereas the difference between that and making decisions based on my fear is I'm scared of what may happen to me as a single lady if I tour alone. So I'm not going to go at all.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah,
that's also using my fear, right? But the second instance is me making the decision solely from the place of fear rather than a place of desire.
Okay, so that it sound like you're so the one is anxiety. All right. So that's debilitating, right? So the debilitating, action of saying, I'm afraid this is going to happen. Therefore, I'm not going to do it at all. It falls into like, anxiety a little bit.
I don't know if I'd call it anxiety, but yeah. I mean, it's a lot of people make those kinds of decisions all the time. I mean, I see it happen amongst like even marketing clients of mine or School of Bravery students who, they're afraid of technology. And so they decide to set up a new product in such a way that they don't have to build the new technology or learn the new technology. But that ultimately isn't great for their end desire of giving their customers exactly what their customers want. And, having a relationship with their customers that like is fun and easy and those kinds of things. So, and that's, do you understand the difference there? That like in one way you're saying, I don't want to learn new technology, so I'm going to set up this thing so I don't ever have to do it. I don't ever have to learn new technology. But that's not the best interest for you, and it's not in the best interest for your clients or your customers. Or you can say, okay, what's the best interest for me? What do I really want? What do my clients really want? Oh, we really want to have like, click on this button and all these wonderful magical things happen. Great. That's going to require me to do technology. Oh, encountering my fears now. Here come the fears. I don't like technology. Technology is scary. Here are all these fears. And now you can encounter those fears, face those fears, and learn to utilize them in a better way rather than set your life up so that you're just avoiding your fears altogether.
I get that. I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand.
In one way, it's making the assumption that like, it comes from a place again of me believing that we are all differently abled and we're not broken, despite what may have happened to us or what addictions we may have or what neurological problems we have or what our history may be like or what our trauma may have been like in the past. Like those experiences give us different skills. And we can still move through life towards our desires, towards the things that we want, and utilize our fears at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. That's absolutely, it's the end game, or the end result, I think, for all humanity is we are all striving to be better than we were yesterday. For the most part, there are exceptions to that rule. Absolutely. There are people that absolutely want to be a shithead and they're okay with that, but we know who those people are. And we know that at the end of the day, if it doesn't, serve well to be around those type of people, they exit your life rather quickly. And so,
or sometimes not quickly enough.
Yeah. Depending.
Sometimes 4 years is too long.
Yeah. But for the most part, we all want the same thing. We want to be better than we were yesterday. We have, character defects that have hurt people or, whatever the case may be. The bottom, the base function is to be better than we were yesterday. And as long as we are all on that same page, I think that humanity has a chance. But we are in a situation now, with this new virus and the quarantining and the whatever you want to call it, social distancing, self-isolating. I would hope that people are using this opportunity to reflect on their own lives and where they are at, happy, unhappy, what.
Oh, for sure. I can guarantee you that there's going to be like, after this thing's over, there's going to be a lot of divorces. There's going to be a lot of marriages, like weddings happening. There's going to be a lot of babies being born. There's going to be a lot of like new life and change. And, like, even though it really sucks to be stuck in the house or to be stuck in one spot right now, as an artist, I know that like we're going to have some of the best creative work come from our world after this. And that is like, that applies to our economy, to businesses, to products that are being developed, to the methods that we work together as business owners and consumers. All of that's going to get better. And that doesn't come from me being a Pollyanna kind of person. I'm not a Pollyanna person. Like, I'm like worst case scenario, like queen. But this comes from a place of having experienced that so many times myself, that like when you go to the chrysalis places, when a caterpillar becomes a chrysalis, inside the chrysalis is literally just goo. It's just goop. Like if you cut it open, it's the grossest, messiest, like you don't know that that's a butterfly on the inside, And so when we go to these cocoon chrysalis places, it feels messy and gross, and like no one understands what's happening, and everyone's just trying to hold on to their freaking hat. And then what comes from that moment is more struggle. You got to get out of that freaking chrysalis, you got to get out of that thing. And it feels uncomfortable because you're all cooped up and you're too big your wings are too big and you need to get out and you need to fly. And then eventually you do, and you get to spread your wings, but then it's going to be hard even then because you've never done that before. So it's going to feel like first times all the time. And it's going to feel, it's going to feel difficult, but doesn't have to feel as difficult what I'm saying here is that like, and I think a lot of people, they see this moment, or they see these moments in time and in history, and they're like, oh, the struggle. And they want to like just lay back on their sword and like martyr themselves on the sword of struggle and striving for what they want. But I think that's a little overkill, because we can still have beautiful change and resilience and bravery and courage and like the strength from your vulnerability without the martyrdom. You don't need to kill yourself over all of these things. So, yeah, but the season after I got diagnosed, the 2 years after I got diagnosed was the most prolific that I've ever been as an artist. Like I released 3 separate albums with different projects. I started touring. I started doing a lot more songwriting. I started traveling for my music as opposed to being in one spot. I'm not saying that I'm like the exemplary, picture of what's going to happen with our world after this coronavirus. But I will say that like, not only just in that instance, but in many other instances in my life, I've experienced what it's like to be at the bottom and be in that chrysalis stage where you feel like you don't understand why am I here? What's going on? Why like those moments bring only good. If you are choosing to make decisions based on desire rather than your fear.
Yeah, I think that a lot of good stuff comes out of struggle. I mean, that's where all the magic is. When you are faced with no other options than to move forward or readdress, come to another conclusion, figure out another way. A lot of good comes out of that. And, the more that you are in that, the more ready that you are to be able to move through, hurdles in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your podcast and where we can find it.
Sure. So all of my, you can find my music at emilyannpeterson.com. I have 2 projects. I have my solo original song stuff. I usually call it like Papa Cana kind of stuff. It's like if Brandi Carlile and Brene Brown and Adele all had lunch together, that's what my music sounds like. And so all of that's at emilyannpeterson.com. And then if you're interested in the School of Bravery, which has the podcast, then you can go to schoolofbravery.com for that. And it's a great, fun community, wonderful folks involved in that. It's been really great to facilitate that.
Well, it's great, man. I'm glad you're out there doing some good, using your talents in other ways to try and make a difference. That's what we all should strive to do. And also, when you get a chance, go ahead and email me all of that stuff and a bio and whatever you want to appear in the show notes so people can find you.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to do that.
All right. Great. And thank you, Emily Ann. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a little bit of your struggle, strife, and beliefs with the audience.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great. And if anybody has any questions or anything else about any of this, I'm happy to, always an open door and an open book. So happy to have an email exchange. My email is hi@emilyannpeterson.com. So, yeah.
All right, great. And then we will have all her places that you can connect with her on the show notes and yeah, all of that. So again, I appreciate your time and good luck to you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye. Thank you for listening to the show, and thank you to Emily Ann for your bravery in sharing your story with us and all about your what you're doing with the Bravery community and movement. As always, you can find Emily Ann's information in the show notes, anywhere that you would like to find her or be a part of her world and whatever she's working on and doing. And you can also find all of my places, or at least links where you can get in touch with me if you'd like, on my link tree. It's probably the best place to go. Follow me on Instagram at Nowhere to Go But Up Now. I'm on Twitter at But Up Now. I'm on YouTube, Nowhere to Go But Up Now podcast. Facebook, Sean Dustin. But if you hit my link tree, it'll take you to all those places. Next episode I have coming out is going to be number 28, and that's going to be checking back in with Eric Maddox, who was episode 13. We had a conversation about Iran and the situation, and a little bit of back history on Iran and the United States relationship. And this time he checks in where he's been spending his time. He went from Spain, now he's in, I believe, Greece, and reporting on the refugee situation over there in Morea and Syria. Always happy to be able to talk to Eric. Got a lot of respect for him as up-and-coming journalist. So yeah, we'll have that for you next. I don't know. I'm not really on a schedule right now, so I just, I'm releasing them as I complete them. Let's continue social distancing. Wash your hands. Wear the mask. Not the N95, but if you got some scarf or something. And if you're a health worker out there and working in our hospitals, I thank you and applaud your hard work and your efforts and everything that you have gone through and will continue to be going through until we get out of this situation that we find ourselves in. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I appreciate everything that you are doing in your service. To everybody else who's quarantining and sheltering in place, find something to do. Better yourself. Look at your life. Or if everything's good, figure out a way that you can help contribute or, be of service in your community. If there's any, opportunities available like that. Otherwise, just just gotta try to get through this. Strange times, but we will. We always do, as a species. Anyways, I'll talk to you next time. Until then, stay true to yourself. Keep it 100. Everything else is just noise.